And now, it's The Law Show on CL 650. A comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law. Now, here's Sterling Fox.
Well, good morning, and welcome to The Law Show here on CIL 650. The breakdown of a relationship is difficult and confusing. Dealing with emotional turmoil while trying to find your way through the maze of rules that govern family and divorce law, sorting out new living arrangements, and making decisions that will have serious financial consequences for the future is not easy for anyone. We're here to talk family law on this episode of The Law Show. It's a pleasure to introduce my guests from WestsideFamilyLaw. Partners Mark Perry and Anna Perry are in studio this morning. Anna, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Nice of you to join us. Mark, welcome.
Good morning.
Tell us a little bit about WestsideFamilyLaw. Where are you, and how long have you been in business?
Well, we're on West Broadway and Granville in Vancouver, and our firm has been around since 2011. Myself, as a lawyer, I've been practicing for 29 years, and Anna has been practicing for 27 years.
Okay.
So we're the two senior partners in our firm.
Okay. What drew you to family law? When you were in law school, there was all sorts of options available to you, including making millions doing corporate work. Why on earth did you choose family law, Mark?
I think for me, Sterling, it was a matter of being interested in people and being interested in people's stories. And I'm a very strong people person. I like to interact with people. And I hear fascinating stories every day. Every day. So, and every day is different, with some new wrinkle to maybe a story I've heard many thousands of times before, but there's something different about it.
Right. Anna, what about you? What drew you to family law? Why did you become a family lawyer?
Well, my background is in property law, and I used to teach in real estate and property law at UBC. And eventually found my way into family law as a result of more and more family law files. So over time, family law is extremely interesting if you're if you're interested in people and people's lives. So the files move very quickly. We don't have a long file, generally speaking. 3 years, 2 years is unusual. And there's a great deal of immediacy. You can see the results and how you are helping your clients, helping their children, if there's children involved. Truly, that's what makes family law unique.
I can imagine it does. I talked a moment ago about people experiencing marital discord and breakup and so on, and the maze of rules and regulations governing family law and divorce law. What are the rules? When we're talking about family law in British Columbia, where people get divorced and so on, what are the rules? What is the rule book? Is there such a thing as a Family Law Act, Mark? I know there used to be at least a Divorce Act. Is that still in place?
Yes, the Divorce Act is federal legislation. And in Canada, as many of our listeners will probably know, there is provincial and federal legislation. And in family law, there are both provincial and federal legislation. So the Divorce Act addresses the actual ending of the legal marriage, the divorce.
Okay.
It addresses issues of custody of children, child support, and spousal support. For many people, for many clients, they also have property to divide, and that's a provincial jurisdiction. So the provincial legislation coexists with the federal legislation. It also deals with custody of children, child support, spousal support, but adds to that dividing up property.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a mess.
I was just going to say, so sort of, Anna, we're talking about double jurisdictions here in the federal law and the provincial law. When these cases go to court, for example, Mark talked about the Divorce Act being federal and some other provisions of a marital breakup being provincial. So what type of judge would hear a case like this, a provincial or a federal judge?
Oh, indeed. It would primarily be judges within the BC Supreme Court or BC Provincial Court. Very seldom do we go outside that realm, unless there's a case that goes all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. So judges in BC hear matters under both the Divorce Act and the Family Law Act.
Okay.
And the difference is federal jurisdiction is not property. So if we're going to deal with property, then it has to be the Family Law Act. And so you have both, when we file a claim for divorce, for example, division of property, rights of children, we would have claims under the Divorce Act and claims under the Family Law Act. But in a sense, absent a paramountcy, clash between the two jurisdictions, federal and provincial.
And this is the messy part you were talking about,
Yes,
Mark.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
right.
so, and the area that you would get paramountcy would simply be in regards to children and spousal support.
Okay.
Because we have a crossover in the area between the two federal and provincial acts in that area, but not in property.
Okay. So the Family Law Act is provincial, British Columbia law. The Divorce Act is national. It's federal law.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So now the statistic that's still being bandied about fairly widely is that across Canada, on an annual basis, roughly 50% of marriages end in some kind of either divorce or separation. Is that figure, Mark, still relevant in 2015?
Absolutely. Yes. Well, 29 years I've been doing this.
Right.
And I follow those statistics from perhaps a more informed and more interested perspective. And, without question, it's been increasing over many, many years, that there would be more ending of relationships year by year.
Okay, and now if you're the stats guy here, what typically then would be the length of a Canadian marriage, given these mathematical odds are playing around? Is there such a thing?
I don't know if there is, to be honest with you. And one of the things I think it's important to introduce as part of that statistical analysis of this is we're talking now about common law relationships,
okay,
not
right.
simply marriages.
Right, right.
Okay, but what I think I recollect seeing is about 10 years is about an average length of time.
Anna, in the eyes of the courts and the system, is there a difference between a formal marriage and a common law relationship?
Well, in the eyes of the courts currently under the Family Law Act, vis-a-vis property, no, and vis-a-vis children, no. So I'd have to say we've leveled the playing field with the change of the Family Law Act, which introduced more divorce, gave common law couples similar property rights or the same property rights as married couples.
Okay, and that's not recent either. That's been around in British Columbia, particularly for quite some time, hasn't it?
Yes, as it
March of 2013.
Oh, okay.
That's when the Family Law Act was introduced in this province.
Okay. So I'm in my personal life, I have a daughter who's getting married. She's engaged, and he's a nice guy. So as part of being the dad and doing my job as properly as I see I should, I've had that chat with my daughter about, the relationship. We're going to get married. They haven't quite set a date. She has a beautiful ring. They're shopping for venues as we speak. Probably today, as a matter of fact. So I did what I thought I should do. I did my dadly duty, Mark, and I suggested that, it's 2015 and I'm trying to be a modern fella here. Perhaps you and your intended should consider some kind of prenuptial agreement or some kind of marriage agreement. I call it a prenup because I watch too much American TV. What do you call it?
I actually call it a prenup too,
oh,
and
okay.
I probably will watch the same shows you do.
So what about prenup? Because you know what she said to me? She said, Dad, I know you're trying to do the right thing, but do you have any idea how incredibly unromantic this conversation has become in about 60 seconds or less? And I said, well, yeah, I knew I was risking that, but I felt I had to go in that direction. And she said, her reply was, well, in our case, we don't have anything. I don't have much. He doesn't have much. We have great jobs and a wonderful future together, but there's not a lot to fight about being brought into the marriage.
Right.
Is that pretty typical, Mark, or do most people arrive in these days with some sort of baggage, if you will?
Because again, we've spoken of the divorce rate or the rate of ending of relationships.
Right.
You do have many people who are, we use the term repartnering. So it's the second relationship, whether it's a marriage or second common law relationship. And those people are clearly or very frequently bringing into that second relationship assets.
Sure.
Assets, absolutely. And then the discussion about a marriage agreement or a prenuptial agreement becomes much more important to ensure that those assets are identified and set aside as being perhaps the assets of the person at the end of the marriage or the common law relationship.
Right. Anna, in addition to my daughter's observation about how incredibly unromantic that is it a process nonetheless that you, given your years of experience with family law, would advise a young couple in 2015?
Yes.
Why?
I find that if they can sit down and talk about finances, even if they perceive that they don't have any property at this point in time, and the reality is that if they've worked for 5 or more years, they've acquired a pension, they've acquired Canada Pension Plan credits. They may have some savings or investments. They've got a car. So it's not quite true that they don't have anything.
Okay.
And
all
then
right.
one, if they're living...
I'm ticking things off on my daughter. Says, yes, tick, yes, check. So, right, okay.
If they're living out...
They're not they're not loaded up with assets, but they don't exactly have nothing either.
Correct.
Okay.
So TIFSA, many people have a tax-free savings account that
Sure.
they've already started. And together with that, one or both of them, they may have a condominium or something that they're paying down if they were lucky enough to be able to take a mortgage or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So I do find that more and more young women in particular are investing in property because they have a sense that the property market is going up so fast.
Right.
So starting really small, the 500 square
foot.
Oh,
sure. Yes.
Place. And so there are people who have substantial mortgages, but they've got some equity in property. So I think that's particularly true of young professionals who have got a real sense of finances and economics.
Okay, Mark. Again, I'm using all of this material you're giving me here, Anna, because this conversation is not over. I mean, parents, we do what we think is right, and we certainly try.
We worry.
Well, we worry, and we do our best to sort of educate our children about what could be.
Right.
And when you're talking about human relationships and the hysteria of emotional love and all of that, I mean, it's fabulous. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. It's absolutely fabulous. But there comes a time when that goes away, not completely, hopefully ever, but it does sort of die down a little bit, and life becomes a little more settled. And by that time, one had better be pretty comfortable with the arrangement, Anna, because all of a sudden, gee, all the dewy-eyed stuff is now gone, and gosh, this is kind of, well, really normal, and not at all as being as gushy as it was just 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. And to my earlier words, I would add debt. Young people, they tend to be a little, at times, careless about debt. And so I would say that money and debt are often the main areas of friction.
Right. Well, and you know, it's very true. I couldn't agree with you more. And I don't think the age of the couple is even relevant when it comes to money and debt issues amongst people of all ages who are together. It can be the source of enormous contention, can't it?
Absolutely.
Oh, indeed.
So yeah. I think then, I guess the bottom line would be, even if I'm unsuccessful, Mark, in my daughter and her fiancé signing up that document, I will at least have provoked them to talk to each other about this subject.
Which may not be as romantic as perhaps your daughter has in her mind at this point in time.
True.
But it's practical.
Right.
And it's healthy.
Well,
it's useful for a young couple to have those sorts of discussions.
I was just going to say, we need to take a break here, but just before we do, how many particularly young couples who come to you and have just decided, enough already, this is over, how many of those people tell you in their discussions, well, we never really did talk much about money?
They very, very common, and certainly money is a significant source of marital discord.
Sure.
No question. And very frequently in sort of unraveling parts of the story, you learn they never had those sorts of discussions. They had completely different expectations as to where the money was going to come from, how it was going to be spent, who was going to earn what. It's a shame, and perhaps they didn't view as a father asking them questions and prodding them along the lines of maybe having those discussions.
Nosy, pushy parents.
Yes, that's right. That's what we need more of.
Such a troublesome lot we are. It's The Law Show here on CIL 650. Nice to have you with us this morning. We're talking family law with our guests Mark Perry and Anna Perry from Westside Family Law in Vancouver at 1367 West Broadway and online at WestsideFamilyLaw.ca. Have a look at that website. We'll take a quick break right now.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CIL 650.